Welcome to Hindustan Times. My name is Jayashree Nandi. I write on environmental issues for the Hindustan Times. Welcome to the HT Environment Conclave. Today we are joined by Priya Agarwal Hebbar, who is the non-executive director at Vedanta. She focuses on strengthening environment, social governance practices, and HR practices at Vedanta. Welcome to the HT Environment Conclave, Priya.
Thank you so much, Jayashree, for having me here. Such a brilliant, platform and such an important topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Priya, my first question to you: how important is the environment, social governance practices at your organization, and how do you ensure that you incorporate these practices in your operations?
So I mean, just starting from an overall approach and Vedanta, which is, which takes from its roots, Vedic roots. I think overall ESG may be a fairly new term, but it's been part of our Indian lives and cultures for centuries. I mean, not only the care, but the worship of trees, animals, forests, rivers, and sun. Considering the earth as mother goddess has always been part of the Indian tradition. If we look back at our Vedas, they define five yagyas, which are all about caring for the environment, caring for each other, caring for animals, caring for the universe. And so I think ESG in general has been a part or imbibed in our culture for centuries. It's just now termed as this new word called ESG. And I think, coming to industry in particular, for the longest time, it seemed that industry and environment care have been at loggerheads with each other. However, I think the good news is that ESG, from being a small mention in annual reports only about 10 years ago, is probably now one of the main defining factors, or is now how a company is being valued, across the globe. Organizations conscious of the triple bottom line, made be people, planet, and profits, are projected to be one of the ones who will deliver highest returns over a medium and long term. So I think the positive change is evident, and even though there's a mammoth amount to be done, I think industry in general has taken the responsibility and has taken to heart that to ensure that that ESG principles are at the center of its decision making. I think overall economic growth is important, however, not at the cost of our environment, animals, or people. And so the balance between growth and responsibility is more real than ever. I think overall, even at a Vedanta level, Vedanta has been working very hard over the past few years to strengthen our ESG approach. At the COP26 and the months preceding it, it was a strong signal that the world has changed. Climate action, which was always seen as a good to do activity, suddenly took center stage. And with the world's largest companies pledging for their net zero commitments, India, too, under our Honorary PM Modi's vision, has committed to a net zero carbon by 2070. Taking from this, even Vedanta very much has committed to a net zero carbon target by 2050. If we go back in history, if we look at what people have said, mining is one of the oldest kinds of human activity and is an essential part of economic growth. A famous physicist, Max Planck, once said that mining is not everything, but without mining, everything is nothing. Everything begins with mining. Everything we see above the ground, may it be the homes we live in, may it be the transport that we travel in, comes from below the ground. And further, the whole natural resources sector is key for India's GDP and economic growth. So I think the challenge and our Vedanta's most passionate goal is to ensure that the economic growth and prosperity is properly balanced with environmental care, with proper ESG practices at the center of any decision we take. While this ambition may be new, Vedanta has been working with sustainability frameworks for more than a decade now. This work has been brought us, within line of sight with global industry leaders such as Rio Tinto, BHP Billiton. We know this because Vedanta is standing in global ESG evaluation frameworks such as the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, Sustainalytics, CDP, has steadily been going up. These are completely independent agencies, so it serves as an important goal to measure our performance. Vedanta also now has a new mission statement called Transforming for Good. to make a meaningful difference in the society at large. Vedanta's new positioning is backed by three pillars: transforming communities, transforming the planet, and transforming the workplace. It reflects Vedanta's commitment towards a sustainable growth and development. We aim to strengthen and implement the highest standards of ESG practices in the business as a commitment towards nation building and the larger good. I think while every ESG framework is important, there are a few that I'd like to highlight. We are aggressively working towards a carbon neutral goal by 2050, as I mentioned earlier. We aim to be net water positive in just over a decade, and we aim to positively impact 100 million women and children positively through our flagship projects like the Nangar. For a large company such as ours, powered heavily by coal, consisting of sectors such as iron, steel, aluminium, zinc, copper, oil and gas, power, this is a pretty mega ambition, but we're determined to ensure we achieve it. By making this commitment, we have been able to kickstart innovative thinking across departments throughout our group. We've even recently launched a program called Green Spark, where we're inviting startups from all over the world to come and solve some of our biggest ESG challenges that our business faces. I think ESG is inclusive of pretty much everything we can think of. Essentially, it means whatever we do responsibly and we do it with care. ESG can begin with the smallest lifestyle change, such as probably going vegan, to large industry changes, such as the mammoth implementation of renewable energy. To imbibe this culture across our employees, we've also initiated a lot of innovative programs to get everyone involved, which I think is very, very important because we want to make Vedanta, ESG and a culture across Vedanta. We have innovative implementations like no vehicle day once a month, where everyone has to walk or take or cycle, or just come to work without using any vehicle whatsoever. We have implemented programs such as no single use plastic. We have very, very strong focus on employee volunteerism for our social impact activities. Overall, I think ESG is a movement, and I think every single person across the company should be part of it in whatever small or big way they can to ensure its overall success.
Yeah, thanks, Priya. I wanted to understand that natural resource extraction also has a huge impact on forests and on people, on communities. So, and we have seen in the past that communities have been in conflict with such extraction projects. So, how do you balance these concerns? How do you address these concerns, especially of forest dwelling communities and of impact on forests?
I think that's a very, very pertinent question, and I think that's something very important, and that's something we think about on a daily basis. First and foremost, what mining and natural resources was over a decade ago, or couple of quite a few years ago, it's not the same situation anymore. With the technology, with the advancements in technology that we see globally, the kind of environmental harm that used to happen centuries ago or decades ago do not exist in today's day. So I think the number one and most important um, key movement to ensure that there is growth, prosperity, and economic growth in these communities, which of course natural resources does bring, and a very, very key important thing to think about is to ensure that environment is not harmed, animals are not harmed, people are not harmed. The key thing is technology. So I think the more and more research we do, the more and more technology has developed. Something that our chairman, my father, always says, it's like back in the day when there was an open heart surgery, there used to be a bloodbath. We had to open up everything. Nowadays it just happens laparoscopically, and it's the same kind of technology that we're moving towards in natural resources and mining. So I think the main and the crucial thing is to adapt and to bring in technologies that ensure least environmental invasion and harm, and that is very, very much possible today. And furthermore, to ensure that down the line, as much as possible, we use renewable energy, we use natural sources of energy to reduce overall global warming and environmental harm as well.
Priya, you're on the board of Vedanta. And how do you see women sort of making a shift towards higher positions, being on the board of several companies like Vedanta? Do you have any internal policies to ensure that there is equitable representation?
So I think overall, I mean, from whatever we've been reading of late as well, diversity on boards is critical to sustaining performance. I think broadening the composition of the board increases the size of the candidate pool, and more importantly, it helps expand perspectives of the top. According to a study, a few years ago, Fortune 500 companies who had more women directors on their boards in 2009 reported 42% greater return on sales and 53% higher return on equity. Further studies have also shown that women on boards strengthen ESG practices and ensure this balance that we're talking about, which is about between growth and responsibility. I think overall, though, what I'd like to say, even though we're committed to ensuring that women constitute 30% of our leadership, this is our goal in the next decade. An aim that is really close to my heart is to ensure equal opportunities. It's beyond just gender, beyond gender diversity. All individuals, regardless of gender, disability, sexual orientation, education, caste, whatever you can think of, should be given equal opportunities. And I think this diversity of thought, this diversity of having an inclusive board or inclusive leadership is only going to help further enhance companies' growth. So I think it's absolutely very, very critical.
Thanks, Priya. One last question. When you say ESG, environment, social governance, this is a concept that people are trying to understand. What does it exactly mean, and how do you imbibe these qualities in your organization? Could you give us some points as to what do you look at? What are the broad issues you look at, and how do you try to incorporate it?
So, honestly, ESG, like I mentioned earlier, is everything. ESG is everything that we do in our daily lives, and how we ensure that everything that we do responsibly and in a caring manner. Whether it's the people who work in our organization, whether it's the communities that we are present in, whether it's how we interact with our own families. Everything has an element of ESG in it. It's just such a broad framework of things that's come under these three letters of or called ESG, or environment, social, and governance. And day to day, I think it's what's really really heartening to see is that, or very like the most exciting part for this whole thing for me, is that how our organization has responded to this revised ambition. We've been speaking of it for years, but now we've been pushing this ESG in such a strong manner. Each and every person in an organization, if you speak to, knows now or has defined in their mind what ESG means. We were last year in a place where no one really understood it. Today, I would say that across our organization, whoever it may be understands what ESG is. And in their day to day lives, whether it's in a communicative way, in an innovative way, we have programs where individuals are, directly connect with our chairman and say that this is what I've done today to ensure, my little moment of ESG. And this is something that we the main, like I mentioned earlier, again, the main and the key part of this entire thing is to ensure each and every person is on this journey with us. And it's a developing space, and I think it's from the seasoned leaders in our organization to our youngest professionals, we're seeing a lot of interest within the organization to deliver on all of these. And people are actively, individually seeking greener solutions. And we see it daily. We have such interesting ideas coming from, individuals from Jharsuguda telling us that, this may be a great green plan to do in this manner. And we actually take those up very seriously and try and implement them in our organization. So we want everyone involved, and I think that's the main part of the entire approach.
Thank you so much, Priya. This was really eye opening just to understand how companies are embracing this concept. And all the best to you going
Thank
forward.
you so
Thanks
much.
for your
Thank
time.
you.
Thanks, Priya.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jeffrey. Thank you so much.